How are you?
Exhausted.
Exhausted.
We haven't even
Oh,
started yet.
It's been a long week.
oh, sorry to hear. All right. Give me 1 second to pull up our files. I guess maybe before I start to share, we, gosh, I'm trying to remember where we kind of last left off everything. It really came back to this team to continue the conversation. So I had resent out kind of both versions, I guess, of the analysis that we've done under that fee scenario. I sent the initial one and then an updated one as well. Um, so, I
Where
think,
we left last time was you were going to refine your numbers because you said they were still not, you still had to drill down a little bit and you were going to nail it down and then get back to us.
and I think that updated one that I sent is that version. At least updated as far as we kind of know. We did recently receive some kind of updated numbers from the developer with kind of current market values on some of the homes within District 2 that are, yet to be completed and sold. Those are not reflected in that updated version that I had shared. I will say that those market values are higher than what we have in this analysis. So, wouldn't, I guess, make this analysis worse. I guess I would say it would really just improve kind of the overall picture. Um, so we've not had a chance to update with those figures. We're certainly happy to. But again, we wanted to kind of carry on with the meeting so that we can keep pushing this forward.
And Shelby, as we talk, I guess as we move forward, I think one of the goals here is to get prepared as we enter budget season and budget workshops, as we have more full board meetings and review of the budgets upcoming to determine. I mean, ultimately, this is going to be an effort to determine how this is going to figure into the 2023 budgets, what that looks like, what the services are going to be provided and what the revenues and income will be as well. So ultimately, I think that's kind of the end result. And one of the big items, as we've talked about, is what does that mean in terms of our limitations in terms of our O&M mill levy? We have a O&M mill levy limitation of 20 as adjusted to 22.263 at this moment. And I think we've identified that that doesn't cover the operations of the community as it stands now, as it stands in the future. So, yeah. So ultimately, I think that's where we're heading to, and we want to make sure that we're heading down the path as we move forward to budget season, and also potential implementation of any other ways to address revenue.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for teeing that up, Brandon. So I would really look to maybe the three of you to see, do we need to run through kind of the latest analysis? I mean, it's not all that different from what we reviewed in the fall. It really just impacted kind of each year, that line we had in there, the income to be identified line item. So it actually reduced that. Because, again, we had some updated kind of absorption and market values when we updated this back in February. So do we want to run through that, or, do we just need to have kind of a broader conversation of whether or not this group feels ready to kind of go back to the board, make an official recommendation, and kind of have Jennifer and her team start that process with the town.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that's where we were at, Shelby, was to basically come up with a strategy that we could then bring to the boards when we meet and say, this is where we want to go. This is what the shortfall is. This is how we're going to fix. We propose you guys fix it. And hopefully, you know, they buy into whatever it is we agree to. Because, I mean, like you said, the numbers haven't changed. We all know what's in front of us. You know, whether it's $30,000 difference here or there, I don't think that's the issue. The issue, the overall strategy that we bring to the boards.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Jason?
So I'm just taking a look now at the projected budget with the operation fee in it. Let me see if I'm able to. Sorry, I'm using the web version of this. Window. There we go. So just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Did that start showing?
Yes.
Okay. So looking at this, it looks like no more developer advances are identified for 2023 budget with the operation fee associated with it.
So Jason, one line below that, you'll see income to be identified.
Okay.
So that would be what I would say is the 2023 shortfall under this analysis. And so as we get into budget, budget time here, there would need to be discussion with the boards of, if there would be a developer advance, or if we need to kind of revisit the expenditures that are outlined below.
Okay. So that's one piece of it. And then I'm looking down here. I do see that deferred maintenance is included as line items in here. But what does that include as far as catching up the reserves? Because we are only at a 5% reserve for our community as well. Is that documented anywhere in here, Shelby?
Yeah, so Jason, if you scroll down kind of to the bottom of this, that those last three line items kind of show the anticipated reserve. That emergency reserve is required 3% under Tabor, and then the capital replacement reserve, I believe, is what you're referencing. And so you can see for 22 and 23 about 13,000, which is more or less where we are today. And then in 2024, starting to add on to that to eventually kind of get to where the district would want to and need to be.
All right. But we would be taking reserves basically from the community funding, because in 2024 we're not having any funding come in from the developer, it looks like, for 24, 25, or 26.
Correct. It would be funded through, combination
Additional
of the
fees.
operations fee and tax revenues. In this analysis, anyways.
All right. That's kind of all I had for questions on that piece. Just, I want to make sure when we go back or communities ask questions, like I think the first question that's going to come up, at least from the community that's asked about the reserve study, is, hey, why are we looking at a fee if we're already underserved and the builder hasn't been paying for the reserves on that piece of it, things along those lines. So I guess, what is the lines that we should give them, Brandon, on that piece of, hey, builders been accepting things in the community, knew that there wasn't funding for it. Like, what is the stance that should be taken from the board on that piece of it, or be announced? Because I think that's going to be one of the biggest pushes we get back.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. So this analysis is showing that the reserve is being built up in this time frame here within 5 years to a level of $690,000. So the analysis shows that the operations and maintenance mill levy, as it's allowed by the town and by the service plan, does not adequately support the operations of the community, and that's evident. And you need to have an additional fee to cover that in addition to covering any reserves required.
Was there ever any investigation work that was done or given to understand why the original O&M fee that was approved by the town, that showed how the levy was going to be spent, the money was going to be spent, deviated to what actually happened, and now we have to evaluate that fee or bring in a fee onto it? I think that's one of the things that we've been asking for a while as well, to kind of present. And I think the town's going to want to know where that variance happened of, hey, this is what was approved, to now that's not there, like it's not operational to live under that plan. Did any analysis happen to that at all?
Jason, like I said, I mean, like we talked about before, I wasn't part of the service plan approval process in the beginning. I don't have that information. I understand that there was a limitation by the town. 20 mils is what they provided.
Yeah, I mean, because no matter what, this sent to go to the town for approval. I think that's going to be one of the big questions they ask is why did the service plan deviate so badly to the actual execution of the service plan?
I don't know. Maybe ask them. Maybe ask them why it deviated.
All right, and then the 636 is the as a yearly fee, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Jason.
What percentage is that unaccountable fees of that 636? So I see like 17,000, and then we're seeing this for 2022, but 2022 is not going to be viable because that budget's already been passed, correct? So do we need to adjust 2023 to not have that fee in there and adjust for the 2023 projected budget?
Yeah, so Jason, the first question, it's about a 5% allowance on the uncollectible fees, just kind of based on other communities. Of course, that could be higher or lower, once we actually start, implementing that. And you are correct. This was done back in February. So we would want to update this before we take this to the board. So we would remove the fee from 2022. It would start in 2023, and so that would impact, the presentation of 2022 a little bit, including that deferred maintenance, which this version has about 35,000 in 2022, so that would get pushed to a future year. I think overall, generally speaking, the big picture of what's presented on this one will remain the same. Just a little bit of a timing difference than with not having the fee in 2022.
I mean, I'm kind of at the point where we kind of have no option. We need to move forward with presenting to the boards. This is going to be what it is. I can tell you now there will be pushback on it, especially seeing that double finance has been removed, that we still don't have commitment from the builder as far as what they're going to do to, hey, we're going to pull money out from the reserves from a fee where this money should have been coming in the door to begin with, that the developers shouldn't have been deferring maintenance for this long, should have been providing. Why are we as a community now taking on $120,000 of deferred maintenance that should have been happening this whole time? I think there's going to be a lot of pushback on that, and we're going to need answers around that piece of it. But we have no choice. We need to get it going, so let's go ahead and do that now. Do you have any assessments, Shelby, that would show if the builder did take up and fund the deferred maintenance and brought the reserve study to a 50% mark, like what that fee would be versus what it is with no funding from the developer?
Well, let's clarify a couple things. No funding from the developer. I mean, I think that's a little bit of a distortion because the developer has been funding operations for years.
And the developers also passed multiple budgets with unknown revenue sources and cut off multiple things of maintenance that's been needed to be done. So I get that piece, Brandon. That's definitely there.
Yeah, I mean, let's just make sure that we're not, distorting facts here as well as we present.
No, definitely.
And Brandon, you had said you were going to go back and discuss with them additional funding. How were those discussions fruitful?
Additional funding as in what specifically?
Developer contributions.
We're not going to. I mean, we've committed how many dollars to date, Shelby, in terms of developer advances contributions?
One second.
Yeah, I think the number is over $1 million at this point in time. So I think that if the developer were to consider anything, it'd probably be at a loan. If you want to do a short-term loan, I think that we're past the point of providing any further contributions.
I mean, I think Jason's point, at least on the deferred maintenance, is a good one. I mean, I think that should be the responsibility of the developer.
The other piece I would probably recommend is I know we have it listed at 636. Either an even 600 or a 650 would probably be more palatable as well. 636 just as a number that rounds out isn't there. If we go to the 650, the extra reserves on that would be really nice to build out. One question I have, Shelby, is this operation fee. We have it to 2026. What does it look like for the lifetime of the community? Like, does it look like it's a fee that needs to stay there for the life, or is it only to get us back to funding the reserves and getting rid of deferred maintenance? Like, what does it look like as far as once the reserves and the maintenance are done? What are we at as a community? Does that fee still need to exist?
Yeah, Jason, so we did a fairly limited, scope in terms of the number of years we did in this analysis. I would say that, there need to be an expectation that this is a long-term solution and that it's not really to just bridge the gap of the current situation of, needing to fill that reserve fund, and to do some of this deferred maintenance, but that it would be ongoing. And I say that because we've done initial work even without that reserve fund, that the tax revenue just doesn't currently cover the anticipated expenditures of the district and the amenities.
But I also think it's important to understand that, you analyze it every year in terms of what the assessed value is, and you understand what that is. You set your budgets, and then you can change if it's 636, if it's 650, if it's if 700, or if it's 550. I mean, that is an annual process that you need to look at. I think that there's many scenarios that this is only one snapshot of certain assumptions on both the revenues and the expenses, and so this is just one analysis, and it's going to be wrong. There's going to be going to be assumptions that are going to be either up or down, and we know that, and so that's up to the board, and ultimately, I mean, the developer's not going to be here, for the next few years. I mean, we're going to be here until we need to be here until we're finished developing the property and owning the property. But I think it's up to the boards as we shift in terms of D4 the operations to residents to understand that it's an annual process. So I think that's one of the things that you need to kind of convey as you move forward with the town and also with the residents as you talk about this.
And then one last piece I want to get confirmation on. This is for every home that would be built in Erie Highlands, including the townhomes, correct? That this fee will exist for? Okay. Yeah, I mean,
What is the I guess question for the group here? What is the I was going to look for this right before the meeting. The reserve study. What is the latest on that? What is the current status on any reserve studies? Maybe that's a question for Jerry, but he's.
Oh, it was completed over a year ago now. We were at 5% funding. Give me one quick second. I'll pull it up and show it to you. I have it on my Google Drive.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. I mean, as we move forward in time, you'll want to refresh that reserve study, understand what that says. I mean, that's also a snapshot.
How much do we still have left to take over from the builder as far as like sidewalks, lanes, landscaping, all that? How much is still left to be taken over? Do you know, Brandon?
I don't have it off the top.
Like a percentage?
Yeah, I think we can. I don't have that handy at this very moment, but I think we can get you details on that.
Because I think that's another piece we really need to understand is how much is still left on builder's plate versus what is still coming to the districts as a whole.
Yeah, and maybe when Jerry's back, we can kind of go over some details on that.
And
and at the end of the day, I'm sorry, Shelby, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Sam.
I was going to say, it's very important as to how we market this to the homeowners. I mean, what are we going to call it? How are we going to frame the argument? I think those are the things that we need to have a plan to bring to the board as to, you know, we all agree we need it. It's just a question of how do we sell the homeowners on the fact that we need it and that they should vote for it. I mean, that's going to be the nub. I mean, if this thing goes down in flames at a homeowner vote, I don't know what we do.
Yeah, no, Sam, I think that's very important in terms of how do you frame it, how do you talk about it, you know, what terminology you use and so forth and so on. And also probably, you know, the comparison and the comparative analysis that, you know, is provided here as well. I mean, how does this compare with other communities of the same structure?
So I think our next steps is Shelby. Let's just get it on the meetings. Let's get it on the books for a meeting for full board. On top of that, let's go ahead, if you can do the next projected budget, taking out the 2022 with the fee, moving into just starting in 2023. That would be really helpful just to kind of have that, because right now I know we're just looking at it. And then let's just get in front of everyone. I don't think there's much more we can do here. We've agreed that fee over mill levy increase, because that's where we need to go. The number on the fee, I think that's just going to be dialed in when we have the full board meeting. I would say probably just round it off at an even 650, so it's more just straight even numbers. 636 just kind of sounds weird. But I'm also a very simple-minded person. And then let's get it out there and move forward, go to next steps, because the more we talk about it, it's going to be just like last year where it gets pushed off and we don't get anything done. So let's just get the ball rolling and get it done, because we need to get it scheduled with the board of trustees and get all that to go as well. And I'm not sure what that step's going to look like. So Jess or Jennifer will need to come in.
All right, well, we will. Go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, I just one other question, I guess, in terms of timing. You mentioned AV? When is the AV going to be preliminary AV be in place or collected?
We typically receive that kind of the last week of August, so hopefully we'd have it that week of the 29th
Okay.
at the latest.
And when are the next board meetings?
So there's not a meeting on the schedule until the budget hearing, which I believe is November 1st, November 2nd.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I would recommend having one in September so that we can sort of get a temperature of the boards going into that budget meeting as to whether or not we're going to be discussing this, or if they just shoot it in the head and we're done with it. At least we know where we're going and we don't have to start from scratch at that budget workshop.
would you all, I guess, would you recommend that because I think we could do it a couple ways. We can try to get a meeting on the calendar just kind of as soon as possible. And maybe that even happens before we have the preliminary AV. Or we kind of wait until that point. So try to get it, early to mid-September, which just, you all know as this kind of gets delayed, we're just in a bit of more of a time crunch.
Yep.
What do you think's best?
I would say earlier the better. I mean, the AV we're assuming has gone higher from year over year is my guess, just due to tax revenue and the joys of the world we live in right now. Correct, Shelby? And it would just adjust it by a few dollars for the estimated fee. I don't think that's worth waiting for. I say we go at it with next steps, understanding what last year's AV was, shooting it a little bit higher, because the worst thing I want to do is say 636 next year have to go, okay, now we need to go to 638. That's the other reason I'm saying 650 is just aim a little bit higher, give yourself the ability to leave it solid for as many years as possible. If we have extra, great. Maybe we could do like a refund to the community if need be ever, but screw it, let's just get it done and get it presented, and from there we can fine tune as needed based upon the AV revenues, because that's going to be our biggest driver.
Sam, Brandon, do you both feel?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
agree with everything that Jason just said. I mean, I think we need to get a temperature of the boards as a whole going forward. Because if we walk into a budget workshop and this whole thing goes up in flames, we're in a world of hurt. So let's do it now, and then at least that gives us time to get our ducks in a row before the budget season.
Yeah, Shelby, and what, I guess my question, and I wonder, the timing of going to the town, if we end up going to the town, and how does it work into the, the budget approval timing? Like, would we actually get feedback before we actually could go to a November board meeting and approve a budget at that time, if it worked out? We should
Yeah.
probably need to think about, I guess, timing of the town as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a really good question. I mean, we do, have some time even beyond that November 2nd scheduled meeting. So we've got a little bit of flexibility there. I think that last time I talked with Jennifer about this, we talked kind of broad picture that if the boards were all in consensus, this is the way that they want to move forward. There would likely be an initial letter drafted to the town. And I think we'd want to kind of provide that this is supported specifically by the resident board members. And so I know that Jennifer and I and Jerry too would be happy to kind of help draft that and pull that together. And then it would be submitted to the town. I think I'm remembering that Jennifer thought that there's a likelihood that this would have to go to kind of council for approval rather than a, just kind of informal discussion. So I think again, the sooner the better, but knowing we do have a little bit of flexibility there between that scheduled meeting and when the board really needs to kind of adopt the budget.
I mean,
Yeah.
school starts next week. Everybody should be back in town. Vacation season is officially over. So hopefully we can get the gang together.
Well, we'll do this. We'll get the analysis updated with the feedback we've received here today and those kind of updated home values. And then I'll work with Jennifer and her team to start trying to get a meeting on the calendar for the boards as quickly as we can.
thank you. And one other kind of related note, I guess, for the next board meeting is that, the D4 board passed a resolution that, is seeking, I guess, representation from D1 and D2 as well. So at that point, maybe that's a good opportunity to, go through that process as well. And I think we've received some feedback. I'm not sure if we've received, much feedback, I guess, from residents in D1 and D2. Any comments on that, Sam or Jason?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to. I know right now we don't have one D2 boards. I've been reached out to about the openings on District 2, but since I'm not in District 2, I haven't been able to give a lot of comment on it. It'd probably be good to know where they should send that information to for people that want to actually jump onto the D2 spots that were opened up. As far as appointing people to D4, I kind of want to see it done to each board, like to vote someone from their board onto District 4. I think would be the good way to do it, but I know there should be figured out. I don't have power, and I'd like to open it up to the rest of the District 1 to weigh in what they think best. If it's either going to be board president that can be moved to D4, or if they want to do it to a vote, or if they just want to open it to community to have an informal, hey, who wants to sit on District 4 type of thing. So I think that'd be kind of good to do as a full group to figure out how best they recommend someone getting onto that, going there to those two open spots.
Okay.
Well, I guess it's just one open spot at the moment, correct? Or did someone else also step down?
Kelly has, he has stepped down off the board, but we anticipate having another vacancy. So it would be two vacancies, one for D1 and one for D2.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let us definitely bring that up at the next one and have like a small, probably like 10-15 minute window on it, because it's whatever I say will be wrong. So I say let's let the whole board talk about it and figure out how best they want to see it, because there's whatever we choose, someone's going to be upset with, whether it's appointment, whether it's voting, whether it's doing president of the boards. Like, we'll let the powers that be as a collaborative group decide on it.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I just wanted to bring it up. Okay. Anything else, Shelby? Oh, Sam, you're muted.
Yeah, we're just waiting for you to give us a date, man.
Okay, all right. Well, I will contact Jennifer now.
Sounds good. Thank you, Shelby.
Okay, all right.
Appreciate it.
Yep,
Thanks,
thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks all.
Talk to you
Appreciate it.
soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.